Hello, everybody. I'm Dan Murrell, coming to you from not so snowy Park City, Utah, and my first ever in person trip to the Sundance Film Festival. They're having the driest winter in years out here in Utah. Meanwhile, there's a foot of snow on the ground back at my house in Arkansas. Go figure. We are at the end of the first weekend of the Sundance Film Festival, which is typically when the biggest crowds are here, the industry people are here, the biggest premieres have happened, and I've been able to see 12 movies in these first 4 days, which is not bad, but believe it or not, I'm just getting tuned up because this next week, I'm staying for the duration of the festival, is where the bulk of my movie going will be, both in person, as I've been doing so far, and online when that window opens. So right now, I want to talk to you about some of the movies that I've seen, some of my favorites of the festival so far, some of the buzziest movies of the festival thus far, the ones that people have really been talking about, and some stuff to look forward to. But first, I just want to kind of give you some impressions, what it's like for me to finally be here after reading about the Sundance Film Festival for literally my entire life. And I have to say that it is everything that I dreamed it would be. I feel so in my element here, just surrounded by people who love movies, who are excited about movies, who want to go find that new movie. The best thing that I found about the festival so far is that no matter where you are, if you're on a bus, if you're standing in a line, if you're walking down the street, you can just strike up a conversation with somebody. They could be another person from the press. They could be somebody who's a fan that's attending the festival. They could be somebody who's part of the acquisition team. There are lots of people from different film companies here that are looking for films to buy. It doesn't matter. Everyone is so nice, so friendly. The volunteers here are amazing. And you can just have a great conversation about what you've seen, what you've liked, something that you haven't seen, something that they haven't seen. It is so much fun. One of the things that worried me coming into the festival was the learning curve, because so many people have gone to Sundance for so many years. I was worried, well, am I going to be able to, as a first timer to even figure out how to do anything? I got in on Tuesday night. I spent all of Wednesday familiarizing myself with at least where things were, but I wasn't really sure, still how to get from place to place. But by today, I kind of felt like a pro. I was at a screening this morning and it let out about an hour before the press screening of a movie called The Gallerist. And it's only Sunday, but I was like, okay, all right, I know where I am. I'm at the library. So I'm going to run out as soon as the credits start. I'm going to go across the street. I'm going to jump on the red bus, but I got to get off the red bus before it goes up into the ski resorts. I'm going to speed walk my way to the fresh market, then go over to the press tent. I can probably tell if the line's long enough, if it's too long, if I might get in for the Gallerist. And if not, I'll just go grab something to eat. And I was able to get in that line for the Gallerist and get a seat for that screening, which I didn't think that I was going to be able to do. It was kind of a Hail Mary thing, but everybody's so helpful. And there are so many tools to help you get around the festival that it really has been easy to feel like I actually know what I'm doing and I know where I am. And my only hope is that this will be carried over to Boulder, because this is the last year that Sundance is in Park City. Next year, it's going to Boulder, Colorado. And I can only hope that the resources are there, because next year, everybody is a first timer. And the other thing that has been, some people might think it would be the opposite effect, but for me is humbling, is the number of people that have come up and said that they watch the channel, that they enjoy the channel, that they have been watching since the Screen Junkies days. It's happened quite a bit, and it kind of validates my greatest hope, which is that this channel is finding the audience that I was hoping that it would find. People like me, people that love movies, people that'll do a crazy thing like come up to the mountains and do a film festival for a week and a half. And just the number of people that have said hi has been incredible. This year didn't start off so great for me. And this has been such an amazing breath of fresh air and a great way to kind of transition this year. And, it's been volunteers, it's been people on the street. At a press mixer that I went to on the very first night, I want to give him a shout out by name. I met a great guy named Derek Murray, who is a writer for a site called NerdBot, and we started talking about what we were excited to see, and I mentioned a specific movie that was having a midnight showing that night or the next night, and he's like, oh, you know what, I got an extra ticket here, let me transfer it to you. And I got into that screening, and that's the culture around here. That's what this festival is all about. That's what everybody's trying to do. Yes, you've got the industry bigwigs, and you have the people that are just here to come to the parties or see or meet the famous people, but that is such a minority of the people that are here, and I am having such a great time. And really, I want to thank all of you, because you allowed me to build this channel to the point where I could invest. And trust me, it was an investment to come here, and I saved for a long time. But I'm able to do this because of this channel and the fact that I'm able to make a living doing this channel and talking about movies and having the trust and the faith that you want to hear about these movies as well. And speaking of that, enough blabbering from me. Let's talk about some of the movies that have been playing at the film festival already through this first weekend. As I mentioned, I've seen 12 so far, and I've been focusing mainly on movies that you will not be able, if you're watching at home, to watch online. Movies that will only be playing here at the festival because I want to be able to bring my opinion of those movies to you in addition to a lot of the ones that you can watch online. So let's talk about some of my favorites thus far, and at the top of that list is a movie called Leviticus, which is the debut feature from a writer-director named Adrian Chiarella. It's a horror film from Australia. Australia has been pumping out some great horror movies lately. It stars Joe Bird, who you might remember as the brother in Talk to Me, and Stacey Clausen. And it is a queer horror story about two young guys in high school who fall in love with each other, but are part of very religious families, and both of their families send them to this holy man, I don't know what you would want to call it, who performs a ritual to essentially cure them of what they see as their ailment. But what that unleashes is this monster of some kind, and you find out throughout the course of the movie. And the monster takes the form for each of these guys of the other one. So the person that you are drawn to the most in this world is also the person or the thing that could ultimately kill you. So the entire movie you're wondering, wait, is he really talking to this guy who, they're bonded and they have this forbidden love? Is he really talking to this person, or is this the thing that's going to kill him? It's so suspenseful. There are great scares in the movie. It looks fantastic. This does not look like a debut horror movie or a debut movie of any kind. This was an extremely self-assured film for a first film, feature film narrative from a director. And I really hope that this gets picked up. It feels very much like an A24 or a Neon film. I can tell you, I saw it at the midnight premiere of the movie. I was sitting behind a group of people who were there from Neon, and I don't know what they thought of the movie. They certainly seemed to kind of rush out of the theater as soon as it was over. Maybe that's a good sign, maybe that's a bad sign. I don't know. I don't have the know-how for that kind of stuff, but I really hope that Leviticus gets picked up and that you get a chance to see it because I'm not going to say it is the strongest film of the festival. There's a couple of others that are also really good, but it is definitely tied with two or three other films for the best one that I've seen so far. Another one that I just saw this morning and that premiered this weekend is called The Invite, which is from director Olivia Wilde. It was written by Rashida Jones and Will McCormick. This is Olivia Wilde's third film after Don't Worry, Darling and Booksmart, and it stars Seth Rogen, Olivia Wilde, who also acts in the film, Edward Norton, and Penelope Cruz. Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde play this couple who are deep into their marriage and honestly kind of sick of each other. And they have these upstairs neighbors who are played by Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz, who are invited down to their apartment for, drinks and some charcuterie. And the night just becomes this crazy series of revelations, twists and turns. It's basically like a stage play. It's mainly just those four actors in this apartment, and all of this crazy stuff happens over the course of the night. I likened it to sort of like the dinner party episode of The Office. The screening that I went to this morning had open captions, which means it's kind of like watching it on Netflix. You could see the dialogue on screen throughout the whole movie, and I'm actually glad that it was, because the laughter was so frequent and so loud that I would have missed a lot of the lines in the movie if I hadn't seen them in the captioning on the screen. It absolutely crushed this morning with the audience that I saw it with. I heard at the premiere it also did very well. I thought this was a hilarious movie. Sundance, so many movies come here. They have not yet been acquired. This movie, I think, is going to get bought. I think it's going to get bought soon, and I think it's going to get bought for a lot, because this is a hilarious comedy. It's going to be easy to sell to a mass market, a mass audience. I could see somebody like a Netflix picking it up. I hope that a theatrical distributor picks it up, because it was so much fun seeing this with an audience. One of the funniest movies I've seen in a while, actually. And so the Invite is one that you are definitely going to keep an eye out for when it gets released, because it is very, very funny. The first film I saw at the festival was called Tuner, and it's from director Daniel Rohrer, who won the Academy Award for documentary filmmaking for Navalny. He's back with a narrative film featuring Dustin Hoffman as a piano tuner and Leo Woodall as his apprentice who suffers from a hypersensitivity to sound. This started off as kind of a zany buddy story between Dustin Hoffman and Leo Woodall, and Dustin Hoffman is hilarious for the screen time that he gets into the movie. And then it transitions into something else, kind of a dark crime type of movie. And those seem like kind of odd bedfellows. I think the movie mostly is able to pull that off. I think it does meander a little bit in the middle, but then the ending of the film is an absolute knockout. It was a great way to start the festival. I think it was technically what they were calling it, the opening film of the festival. And I was very happy and very lucky to be in the audience for that one. So Tuner is one to keep an eye out for. And then I saw a really funny comedy called The Incomer, which is the feature debut of writer-director Louis Paxton. Donald Gleason plays a government official who's sent to reclaim an island from the brother and sister who have lived there in complete isolation for their entire lives. If you know me, you know that I have an affinity for that sort of British humor, that British sensibility, and this movie has that. It's sort of like the Ballad of Wallace Island, that sort of humor, and even in a way kind of a similar concept. But this was another one that I was laughing throughout the movie. I thought that the characters were very well drawn, and of the ones that I've talked about so far, this is the only one that you will be able to watch online when the online window opens later this week. So if you're looking for a comedy at the Sundance Film Festival, this is one that you'll be able to watch at home, and it's one that I very highly recommend. The premieres are always the hardest tickets to get at Sundance because they usually have stars in them. You can't watch them at home. You can't really see them anywhere else except for at the festival. There were a couple of other premieres that I was able to see over the last few days. One of them was a movie, pardon my French, but this is the name of the film, called The Shitheads, which is from Toxic Avenger director Macon Blair, starring O'Shea Jackson Jr., Dave Franco, and Mason Thames. It is probably the most messed up road comedy that you've ever seen, and it actually gets a little bit darker. If you know Macon Blair, if you've seen his other films, you know that he is all about pushing boundaries. He does not care about convention. He does not care about what the extremes may or may not be. And this movie very much is that. I thought it was stronger in the first half than the second half, but it did have laughs throughout. There are some faces that pop up in the second half that I think kind of bolstered that. And it was an enjoyable experience. A lot of times, the hottest tickets of the festival aren't necessarily the best movies of the festival. I wouldn't put this among the best of the best that I've seen so far, but it was really enjoyable. And another really popular film this opening weekend was called The Gallerist, which is from director Kathy Yan. It stars Natalie Portman and Jenna Ortega. Natalie Portman is the curator of the struggling art gallery. This incident happens that could derail this big art show. Jenna Ortega is her assistant, and they try to figure out how to improvise their way out of this situation. And this was another one that was entertaining. I laughed a lot during it. I don't think it was a great movie, but it was a good one. And I think it's one of those movies that, you know, Sundance kind of needs because it does draw in the people that are not just interested in the indie films, but also in the bigger stars. Charli XCX is in this movie. She's also in two other movies at the festival. She kind of was the buzz of this opening weekend. And so there was a lot of interest around The Gallerist. And kind of like The Shitheads, I enjoyed it. I was glad that I saw it, but I wouldn't put it up in the top tier. And buzz is a big thing at film festivals. As I mentioned, Charli XCX has been the buzz of Sundance. One of the other movies that she was in is a mockumentary about her called The Moment. It was the event of the first weekend, the premiere of this film. I didn't even try to get a ticket. There were people that were turned away that had tickets, not just a few, but a lot of different people. It is a movie that I am going to see. I have a ticket later on in the week, so I will bring you my thoughts on that. But I would say that was probably the hottest ticket this opening weekend. I Want Your Sex is the third film that Charli XCX is in. It's Greg Araki's latest film starring Olivia Wilde, again, and Cooper Hoffman. I'm hoping to get a chance to see this, but I'm also prepared that this may be one of the ones that I don't get a chance to see here in Park City. Saccharine, which I mentioned, was a midnight film. It's already been acquired by Shudder. It's the latest film from Natalie Erica James. She did a film that I really liked called Relic that was released back in 2020. I thought it was a really good concept. I like Natalie Erica James's style. I like her eye as a director. I think the movie itself maybe would have worked better as a short, but there's some really effective horror movie imagery in this film and some good scares. I just think it was stretched across too much of a runtime. The ending of the film, I actually thought there was a perfect point where the film could have ended, and then it just kind of kept going and demystified what we'd already seen. But as I mentioned, it's already been acquired by Shudder, so you will get a chance to see this movie in the near future. The History of Concrete has really been talked about a lot. It's sort of a meta documentary from John Wilson. I'm hoping to get a chance to see that later on in the week. And then as far as films that are in competition, because that is a big part of what Sundance is about and what the main focus will be over this next week, there's a movie called Josephine starring Channing Tatum and Gemma Chan. It's in the U.S. dramatic competition, so it would be in contention for what would be considered the top prize at Sundance. This is the movie I keep hearing people talk about that premiered this weekend saying, oh, it's really good. You've got to see it. You've got to see it. When the online window opens, you will be able to watch Josephine because it is in competition. I would highly recommend grabbing that ticket, even though I haven't seen the movie. That's the one that people are talking about on the street this past weekend. And like I said, that online window opens on Thursday. It actually opens on Wednesday for critics, so I'll be able to kind of jump in and see a lot more. And I'll probably do another video on Thursday or Friday talking about what you should watch if you're watching online, or at least my recommendations. So far, I would say, as I mentioned, Josephine, because it is getting so much buzz. The Incomer, which I mentioned I liked a lot. Extra Geography, which is in the World Cinema category here at Sundance. It's a really kind of quirky coming of age teen comedy, but also about friendship. It's kind of wistful, looking at that point where you start becoming an adult and, is your BFF really your best friend forever? I liked that movie a lot. And then another film that's in the U.S. dramatic competition, but it is a comedy, which is kind of rare because most of those movies are kind of heavy, is The Musical. It's called The Musical. It actually debuted today. I was able to see the press screening. And the less you know about this film, the better. The broad strokes are that it's about a middle school drama teacher who has a conflict with the principal of the middle school, who's played by Rob Lowe, and he decides to take the annual school musical in an interesting creative direction. That's all I'll say. If you are in the mood for a comedy that's also in competition, that you will be able to watch at home if you're watching online, just give this a shot. Don't read too much about it, because I think if you don't know what the real premise is, it's actually going to be much more effective because they drop it a little ways into the film. So that would be kind of a blind watch recommendation for me. As far as movies that I have tickets to see in person this upcoming week, one of them is called Buddy, which was a midnight film about kind of a twisted kids show. I've heard good things about that. I'm going to see that in person later this week. The Wait debuts this week here. It hasn't yet played at the festival. It stars Ethan Hawke. Some people have already seen this, and it has been getting very, very good word of mouth, despite the fact that it hasn't even shown here in the festival. So I am anxious to see that. Time and Water is a new documentary from the director of another one that played here at Sundance called Fire of Love that I really, really liked. I'm looking forward to that. As I mentioned, I will be seeing the Charli XCX film, The Moment. Gail Daughtry and the Celebrity Sex Pass, which is the latest from director David Wayne, debuted today here on Sunday at Sundance, and I'll be getting a chance to see it later in the week. And then Kogonada's newest film, Z, is also going to be premiering here. I'm going to get a chance to see that. And I will also be watching all of the films for sure that are in the U.S. dramatic competition. I'm going to try to watch a lot of the documentaries as well. As much as I can watch, I will watch. And of course, I will update you with those thoughts later on this week. And then once the festival is over, and probably once I get back home, I'm going to do a recap of everything that I watched, things to keep an eye on. Does anything join Leviticus and The Invite and the other movies at the top of my list? I'm sure that there will be some. There were several Oscar nominees in the documentary and narrative film categories that debuted here at Sundance last year, and I think it's a pretty good shot that there's going to be at least one or two that are debuting or have already debuted here in Park City. Now, if you don't want to wait for my video updates, I am also logging, rating, and reviewing movies as I see them on my Letterboxd account. I am going to start reviewing and rating things more on there. So if you want to get a jump on my thoughts here on the YouTube channel, you can check out my Letterboxd account, or you can just wait for my next video update, which will come later this week. I am still going to do Charts with Dan this week. It might be a bit abbreviated because I'm fitting it in around screenings, but the business goes on, even though so many theaters were closed down by this major winter storm. But business as usual will continue as I watch all of these movies at Sundance. This has been a great first few days, and even more to come. Thank you so much for watching my first update. Be sure to stay tuned, subscribe, hit that like button, hit the bell so you know when my next video comes up. But most of all, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, stay safe and I'll see you then. Bye.